Vaughn, don't you think you better get out to the bullpen?
Right now?
Yeah.
There's still so many left in the bleachers.
Who cares? Go on, get out there.
Hey, mild thing! I think I loathe you! You didn't think I'd abandon you, did you, Vaughn? You human piece of cow flop! You big steaming pile of mastodon dung! Bring out the pooper scooper! You Bush League, no talent flash in the pan, choke artist! Huh? Hey, where you going, Vaughn? Huh? You looking for your Terminator, Vaughn? Yeah, you go back in there, Vaughn.
You can't let that guy address you like that. I mean, you gotta at least have the teammates pretend to hold you back or something. You can't have the guy in the stands just have you sulk back into the dugout like that.
Badway, his comment was, at least I don't have some cover girl dragging me around by my Johnson? Is there a more 90s insult than that?
I mean, cover girl. I mean, what even is cover girl anymore? You're right, but...
And you could see, as Omar Epps, Willie Mays Hayes, as he's walking away from Wild Thing, he expected it. He knew that there was going to be a brawl. You can see that he's bracing for impact. He's got his shoulders rounded. His eyes are wide. He's just waiting to be hit, waiting to be speared in the back by Wild Thing. And then, of course, it happens, and the team is a fracas. Is that a word we can use in this show?
Yeah, fracas, a fracas. I mean, that's a baseball brawl term, and
yeah,
a smart move by Epps to turn his back as to not be blamed for the starting of the fight.
Right.
I mean, how my back was turned, but he knew it was coming.
All I'll say is I'm on Wild Thing's side here. You can't give that guy the time of day. You just leave. Get out of here. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. That's my thought on it.
I don't know. I think Randy Quaid was the catalyst to turning the whole team around. He knew that heckling Vaughn would have him sulk back into the dugout, which therefore would trigger a team-wide brawl, therefore igniting the team into an unprecedented winning streak.
My hot take on Major League 2 is that Randy Quaid's the best character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't villain scale him, right? So
no. Maybe in real life we can villain scale him, but this character, no.
Well, welcome back to the Last Row Podcast. This is episode 136.
Yo.
Today we have a very, very famous and very special guest with us, Mr. Ty Hildenbrandt.
A very
handsome man. You can't see him, but we can. And very, very famous guest. Thank you so much, Ty, for being with us today. Thank you.
Did you describe me as very famous? You're going to be my new agent.
Hey, I'll take the job gladly.
You're going to be my new agent. I see the check cleared. Thank you for your kindness and for the invite. I will admit, I was peeved when you guys did Major League and you didn't invite me on.
Yeah. That's our bad.
And so this is a redemption arc of sorts, and I am thrilled to be here. I listen religiously. I am ever so grateful that you guys invited me on. So this will be fun. Let's talk Major League 2.
Thank you. If you guys are new to the show, check our website out, thelastrowpodcast.com. Follow us on all the social channels at The Last Row Pod. Check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And please consider leaving us a 5-star review if you haven't done so already. Thanks to everyone that did so far. Welcome, guys. Badway, Mr. Badway, I turn to you for an overview here.
So, like we said, Major League 2, March 30th, 1994. Guys, rated PG. Off of the rated R, original there. 5 years after the fact. Did you guys watch this movie in 94, or was it much later in your childhood? How did that work?
I actually saw this movie before seeing Major League 1.
That's how it works, isn't it? That's usually how it works. Me too. Yeah.
I was in awe of this movie. I loved every bit of it. And I didn't go back until later to see Major League 1. And the version that I saw at the time, I think was like the edited version on USA.
Yeah. Shocking.
Major League 1's one of those movies, at least for me, that when it's on TV, when it's on cable TV, if that's even a thing for us anymore now in the era of streaming, I will always watch it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Always take time to watch the end of the movie. It's not that long of a movie to begin with, but the edited version of the first one is kind of its own movie. It's its own version of that original movie because the way that they edited out curse words and some of the scenes, it kind of makes it more unintentionally funny than the original.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't go back and watch that one until after the fact. And for a long time, and I think to some extent, I still think Major League 2 is the better movie. But no, it kind of took a while for the whole franchise to catch on with me. Major League 3, we're not gonna talk Major League 3, right? We're not gonna.
I have a soft spot for that movie.
I mean,
I do.
We can acknowledge its existence, but yeah, I mean that's for another day.
That's I'm not even willing to go there with it. Badway. That movie never happened in my book. But
Scott Bakula.
Yeah, who are the Buzz? Who are they? Okay.
Oh my god,
Drew. Thoughts on watching this as a Ute?
I agree with Ty. I saw it. I saw this movie before the first one, and when you go back and watch the first one, it's almost shocking because it's more. And we talked about this in I forgot what episode I don't even remember. I'll put it in the show notes. We did Major League 1, obviously the summer of sequels here. I remember watching that movie thinking like, man, this is a love story between Tom Berenger and Rene Russo. It's like really shocking. And we famously called him out as sort of the villain and the creep of that movie. Maybe rightfully so. But I think the second one's a more fun movie. It's a little bit more fun. It's goofy. It's definitely PG compared to the first one, which is rated R. But I like the second one better, I think.
You hit it. They cut the crap, and it's more baseball.
Yeah.
And if you're growing up in this age and you watch this movie, of course you're gonna like this more than Major League 1, and then the nostalgia will follow you forever, and on and on. Runtime hour, 1 hour 45 minutes. Genre sport/comedy, directed by David S. Ward. Drew, this is our third David S. Ward movie. Would you believe it? He only directed like 6 movies, so we got half of his catalog.
We got half of the catalog right there. Only 3 more to go.
Major League, and can you name the other one?
I know this. And
football
now I forgot.
movie.
Was it The Program?
It's The Program.
The Program.
Program.
That's what I thought.
Yep. Anyway, ratings, IMDb 5.6 out of 10. Too low.
Too low.
Rotten Tomato 5%, guys?
Way too low.
5%?
How insulting is that?
Does it even go that low?
I'm about to brawl Rotten Tomatoes.
That means that if you go on the Rotten Tomatoes page and you sort by like lowest of all time, this has to be on the first page of lowest of all time. And there's no way.
Guys. It's on the list.
There's no way.
This is a 5%. This movie rules.
It's
awesome.
There's no fun to be had.
Jeez,
way too low.
Man.
That's why I started a petition to boycott Rotten Tomatoes.
It's offensive.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Drew shot me down.
We're gonna bring it back.
Yeah. No semblance of a Metacritic score here, guys. So we're going to Letterboxd 2.8 out of 5, which is more respectable, but still too low.
It's too low. But they can't score it on Metacritic because it's too good. That's why. It's too good. There's not a score high enough for it.
Breaks
really.
the scale, guys.
So,
all right, for those that don't know, Major League 2 is about the Cleveland Indians, an endearing assortment of oddballs who improbably won the division championship last year, have since lost their edge due to personal pursuits and the excesses of fame. Not bad.
it's
Rick Wild Thing Vaughn, played by Charlie Sheen, does lucrative endorsements, but his killer fastball is gone, the Terminator. While once aggressive slugger Pedro Serrano, played by Dennis Haysbert, has become a laid-back Buddhist. But as the players realize they've all gone astray, they rally for a shot at the World Series.
You know what I say to that synopsis?
What's that?
Too long.
Too long.
Too long.
Entirely
That's
too
what
long.
I say.
Let's shorten it up. What about the taglines, Drew?
You know what? So let's do the taglines here. So Ty, I'm going to ask you. You're the guest of honor here. You tell us which one you prefer. So there's only 2 this time. Sometimes we have 50. There's only 2. So Major League 2, America's favorite team is back. Number 2, the Dream Team is back.
I mean, I think both of those are better than the official synopsis.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, because I was listening to that, and while it's not wrong, that's not what I got out of the movie at all.
It never is. It never is. The synopsis
I didn't get any of that.
Are always awful.
I didn't get any of that out of watching this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it, like, we know Wild Thing got a little too big for his britches, or at least internalized the fame and decided that he needed to change his image because he found the aforementioned cover girl or a marketing agency or a different agent. I guess in this case, the agent was the girlfriend. Maybe it was a combination of those things that made him change his ways and grow his hair and start wearing suits and all that. I don't think it was Serrano getting famous that turned him into a Buddhist.
No,
like that. There was nothing in this movie that led me to think that, oh, that's why. Okay. That's the reason why he went like super Zen all of a sudden. So I think this is false advertising. And it portrays this movie in a negative light that I don't appreciate. I love this movie to every fiber of my being.
Me too.
Well, that would fall into the category of personal pursuits, right? Pursuing Buddhism. That's personal pursuits, not excesses of fame.
What about the finances for this? So this movie had a $25 million budget, and probably all of that went to renting out the ballparks, right? I mean, what possibly could you spend $25 million on? Maybe Charlie Sheen's apartment? And it had
bucket of baseballs is like $50.
Yeah, and it had a worldwide gross return of 30. So for all intents and purposes, this thing was a flop, right? I don't remember what the first one did. It wasn't that much, but there's still some star power in here. I know you don't have Wesley Snipes returning, but 30 million. And then from an award standpoint, unfortunately, no awards. It's only got nominated for, actually, it was worst sequel, 1994 winner, so it did win that.
Drew, you're going to upset the guests. Come on.
The Stinkers Bad Movie Awards. But, Ty can dispute these. And then it was also nominated for, quote, the sequel that nobody was clamoring for. Ty, agree or disagree?
I mean, maybe I'm biased, guys. You invited me onto this show for a reason. All right. I mean, to be fair, I never did clamor for the sequel because I didn't know it was a sequel.
Yeah.
I didn't see the first one before I saw this one. And so I think longingly about 1 and 2 now in retrospect, but I don't 5% on the Rotten Tomato meter.
You're rocked by that.
That's a little excessive.
You're rocked.
Shocked you to your core.
Yeah.
It will shock you. You won't believe the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie.
Nobody likes fun, but I guess if you remember the first one and then you get a sequel that's 5 years later, did that happen? In these, I guess you could compare Karate Kid to that. Karate Kid 3, isn't that?
Yeah, but I think it was only a couple years later, right? Because it was 84, 80. I should know this, and then it was 89 for the third. But I don't know. It
seems like a long time. I don't know.
Do you feel, and Ty, maybe I'll start with you. Do you feel, so we talked a little bit about how this, what your experience was with this. Can you think of any other movies that you watched that maybe was a sequel that you saw first, and maybe you because of when you saw it, you liked it better than the original? I can think of a couple, but I'm curious if you have any as a movie-going person.
Not off the top of my head. No, I mean, certainly not ones that I remember as fondly as this one. I mean, this I think hit all of us kind of in our early formative years as sports fans, as movie fans. And so maybe for that reason and that reason alone, we have a fonder memory of it. To be honest, there was no way I was going to see Major League One in 1989. I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
7 years old. Right. That just wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And so I never had a chance at catching that one first. I'm sure there are examples, but I'll have to give it some thought here. What is yours that you saw first?
It's not first, maybe, but one that comes to my mind, and I don't know if you're going to say this one too, Badway, is Ghostbusters 2. I saw the first one. It was the TV edit, but I saw the second one so many more times as a youth that when I went back to the first one, it's you almost like the second one better. It gets a lot of crap. Obviously, the original is the best, I think, but I have a soft spot for the second one. I don't know about you, Badway.
I saw 2 before I saw 1, and 2 was the first movie I saw at a theater. So that's kind of that is the quintessential sequel before the original for me. And it's kind of the same thing where, I don't know, maybe 1 is probably a better movie, but 2 is more fun. And I think that holds true for both.
I feel like I've seen some of the more recent action, or I guess action's the wrong genre, whatever we classify superhero movies as these days. Yeah. Some of the Avengers movies, Marvel, right? Some of those, it's tough to kind of be in lockstep with the Marvel comic universe as they were building out their arc. And so I definitely was out of order with some of those. To say that I liked what Thor Ragnarok, I think I saw before some of the other Thor movies, and that was funny as hell.
Yeah.
And so that one I really, really enjoyed. I definitely don't have a whole lot of recent examples beyond that, though.
Yeah. What about this movie, and Badway, your thoughts? But did watching this again, bring you back to your childhood when you saw this as something that you grew up with?
It's the type of thing where, like, and Ty will agree that you've seen this movie 1,000 times. You kind of like know the lines as they're coming, even if you haven't seen them and you haven't seen this movie in years. It's kind of ingrained in the brain. And as soon like within the first 10 minutes, I'm like, yes, this is my movie. This is my youth. This is my 90s.
I could do all the lines in this movie, and everybody has a handful of movies like that, where you know all the lines. You can recite the movie lines to your friends. It's just second nature. You've seen it so often, you remember it so fondly. And this is one of those for me. I could go years without watching it and still do, 35% of the lines in the movie without any mistakes, because it is the kind of thing that you, like I said, we watched this in our formative years as movie fans, as sports fans, as young adults. And, it just had an outsized impact.
So talking about the first movie and into the second movie, maybe we need to kind of set up where these guys are, because the first movie ended, I think, if I'm not mistaken, right? They ended at the end of the season. They were like winning the pennant, and that was it, right? You never get the playoffs in these movies, really.
Yep.
I mean, I think this was the first one.
You just win the pennant. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'll throw it to you guys. Where is everybody at since the last movie? Because not everybody's back, it seems. Maybe you could set this up for us, Badway.
Yeah, it seems there's only a handful back, right? You got, as far as players go, it's Vaughn, it's Serrano. Dorn is now in upper management order. Taylor is hardly a player. He's hanging on. He knows he's not making the team. He knows. Like he may pretend like he thinks he's making the team. He knows he doesn't have it. He's limping before he does one move.
He's limping coming out of the taxi.
Yeah,
he's
like
submerged in the tub.
You heard the phrase, "Your knees are shot." His knees are shot.
They're blasted.
Yeah, and then you got Serrano, who's too peaceful to care. And then you got Willie Mays Hayes, who's just a completely different person. So,
do you like that? No, do you think that they should have just made it a different player? Like, did it need to be Willie Mays Hayes?
I think it needed to be Willie Mays Hayes. Yeah. And I actually, again, maybe it's because I saw the second one before the first, I liked Omar Epps better.
Me too. I did too. I know it's controversial, but I did.
As Willie Mays Hayes.
He's more likable. For sure.
He's more likable. I mean, look, the difference is, and I understand why the first movie is rated R. It had a harder edge to it for sure.
Yeah.
And this was definitely more of a fun movie and kind of upbeat and not quite as scandalous, I guess. I just like this character better. Willie Mays Hayes would have been fine as Wesley Snipes in Major League 2 as well. But this character was just like a little bit more upbeat, and I don't know. I just think he did a better job with the character. Maybe it was just written better and it wasn't so much an actor thing, but I have long maintained that Omar Epps was a better Willie Mays Hayes.
Yeah. And it's a natural progression for the character too, to become Hollywood after one good season. He's in action movies, doesn't care so much about baseball. He's milking his injury. Team's losing, so he doesn't care. He's thinking about his next movie, maybe. It's a natural progression.
I want to ask you guys about the Black Hammer White Lightning movie with Jesse the Body Ventura, because I'm just dying to know what this movie is. Like, I saw the trailer and it kind of intrigued me. Like, this is something that I think we would do on the Last Row podcast. Like, that's the kind of film we would be watching. Would you guys be in the theater watching that movie starring Willie Mays Hayes?
Absolutely. And then you're going to put a wrestler in there too, let alone Jesse Ventura straight out of Predator. Like, couldn't be more perfectly cast. I'm in.
It's wonderful. It's definitely not a good movie. It's definitely one of those movies like the Fast series that you watch ironically, just because it's got an interesting cast in it and guys who are, acting seriously with a goofy plot. The fact that Jesse the Body Ventura does some sort of Tarzan yell as he's jumping down off of a ship platform. It looked like it was a shipyard of sorts. And somehow lands on his feet. Tom Berenger in the movie Jake Taylor, the character Jake Taylor in the movie, reacts, shrugging like, how the hell did that happen? And the little exchange at the end where Willie Mays Hayes says, mine fell the hardest. Or no, Jesse the Body Ventura says, mine fell the hardest. And Willie Mays Hayes says, mine are the deadest. I mean, that is the kind of movie that we would watch ironically, not because we think it's any good.
This is why we're lucky to have you on the show right now. Your knowledge of Major League 2 is unparalleled across the internet here. So we're very lucky to have you on.
Listen, let me tell you a quick story, okay? And you know this, you guys know this because we have a shared doc here. I have the list of all the players that were mentioned in the movie, and it's not just the main ones, but I have like the backup first baseman. I was also very active back in the day. This is like college, early aughts. I was very active on weird message boards where people were trying to figure out what the Cleveland Indians record was in the original Major League, because the way that worked out, there was a 1-game playoff. There were they mentioned more players in the first movie. To your point earlier, Badway, we didn't get as many of those guys in Major League 2. And you could actually piece together, and I helped piece together what the lineup was, the actual 1 through 9 lineup was for that Cleveland Indians team. So I am in it to win it here when it comes to all things Major League, whether it's 1 or 2.
I want to, and maybe that's a good segue to this, because what I want to ask you is maybe coming out of the first movie into this movie, because it's the next season, was this team really even that good? And could this really happen to a team, or was it the ultimate like lightning in a bottle situation? Like, who actually is good here? Or do they have good players?
Drew, this movie came out in 94. They probably wrote it, sometimes close to that. Remember the 93 Phillies. This is maybe based off of the 1993 Phillies, which had a bunch of scumbags who were good one time, and that was it. It was flash in the pan, and this is exactly that. So it's realistic, and it's also realistic of the downfall. So I don't know. What do you feel about that, Ty?
Well, they had some interesting players though, and if you're asking the question of who was actually good, I mean, Willie Mays Hayes was a speed demon on the base paths and buffed up in the winter and was going deep. Now, I would like to have seen more of his stats to see the effects of that offseason strength and conditioning program. I want to know how many home runs he had in this version of the movie versus the first. We saw in the first game, he had some warning track power 2 or 3 times. Continue that on for the course of a year. My hunch is that he's moving more RBIs than usual. I think he was legitimately good. If nothing more, he was a terror on the base paths. Rick Vaughn was not good for most of the movie until he refound his Terminator. But in the first movie, he was a revelation. He was the pitcher that has a live arm in the minor leagues. You bring him up, you don't think he's going to do much, and then he just sort of catches fire, right? So he, at least we know, has potential. Serrano had crazy stats in his first year, leading the league in pretty much every offensive category, in addition to total baldness, which they drop in there very casually at the beginning of the movie. So he's clearly he's like a Giancarlo Stanton type. He doesn't hit for average. He's not hitting for average. He's hitting for power, bad.
230 with 40 bombs, 120 RBIs plus, that kind of thing. And then on top of it, I think Rube Baker is probably the best player on the team.
Whoa. I like Rube. I'm a fan.
So Rube Baker's character, his character quirks when he has the yips throwing back to the pitcher, that's based on a real story. That happened to Mackie Sasser, who was a former catcher for the Mets. And where he couldn't throw it back to them. Now, I don't know if he used Playboy or the Fredericks of Hollywood to distract him and get the ball back to the pitcher more effectively. Like, I don't know if that part is real, but that plot line is loosely based on Mackie Sasser. But they present Rube as like this down home country boy who's just sort of happy to be there. And every time they show him outside of like spring training and a few missteps along the way, he's getting a hit, he's getting on base, he gets plunked in the ankle, but still wants to run, gives an inspiring speech to the team. It just seems like as a player, he's an actual menace out there. Meanwhile, they present him as just sort of like this country bumpkin.
So there's 2 teams here. There's pre or current Parkman Indians, and then there's post Parkman Indians, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly.
So you would rather have Rube Baker start at catcher and maybe put Parkman at DH, or maybe teach him how to play first?
I mean, Rube Baker's a better teammate. Parkman's a better player. Parkman was undeniably a good player. He was a jackass.
He's a locker room cancer.
He's a cancer, absolutely. And he had that horrible leather jacket and was smoking cigarettes. But outside of that, no. I mean, he was obviously a good player. He was just a terrible teammate.
Yeah, I mean, I could argue that like he's possible MVP of the league. I mean, he's just every shot you show him, he's jacking homers. I mean, you could get through a jerk teammate, as long as you have a strong locker room around him. And I guess they clearly did not.
Can I say like how unintentionally hilarious it is to me when someone is smoking a cigarette while doing some type of athletic activity? Like, I'm pretty sure, and you would know this better than me, Ty, but like, wasn't the pitching coach smoking cigarettes while he was while they were in batting practice? Like, he was tossing pitches to them, smoking like a chimney.
Yeah, he was throwing pitches to Rube Baker. That was when Rube was trying to solve his yips. And they had the assistant coach smoking a stogie while he was doing it. Yeah.
I just think that's really funny. And I don't remember what movie is like old school where Vince Vaughn's like on the rings and he's just smoking like a cigarette. Like, I just find that hilarious.
Old school.
For some reason.
Yeah.
So is Roger Dorn, who we didn't mention much yet, is he GM of the year? Unintentionally for making that Parkman trade.
Fell into it.
Opening the spot up for Rube Baker to kind of glue the team together while also getting the second glue guy and the lightning rod that they needed and Kamikaze Tanaka.
Ashuru Kamikaze Tanaka, recently of the Tokyo Giants, right?
Yeah.
And there's that scene right after Dorn makes the trade. I didn't sell Parkman outright. I got you an outfielder who used to play for the Giants. And Lou Brown looks at him and he says, Taylor? Not those Giants, guys. And then the next scene, I thought this was brilliant the way they laced this together. The next scene, it is Tanaka just doing some sort of like primal scream in left field, crashing into the wall and losing the ball. He ended up playing, I think, a really instrumental character in this movie. He was a plot device to bring Serrano out of his little Zen state of being. Yeah. Tanaka and Randy Quaid were important MVPs in this movie. They were important to make this movie flow.
Kick these guys in the ass.
That's exactly right.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that the Major League One Indians were a better team than the Major League Two Indians, or the Major League Two Indians a better team than the Major League One Indians? And you got different players here, but like, which one is a better team?
Major League One had more than one pitcher, so there's that.
Yeah, like, that guy.
But it was Eddie Harris.
Yeah. He had the junk. He was throwing that junk, and it worked.
He had Bengay on his arm, right?
Yeah, well, he had Crisco, Bardahl, and Vagisil. Those were his three things. And then he talked a little bit about rubbing some jalapeno up your nose to put snot on the ball. That was part of the indoctrination of Ricky Vaughn when he came up from the minors, and Eddie Harris was trying to like nurse him along.
He didn't listen. Ricky didn't listen.
I missed him in this film.
Here's the thing, and I'm sure you guys have done other sports movies. I know you guys have done other sports movies, but it is so hard in a sports movie to find an actor or actress who actually looks like they know what they're doing. Like Rick Vaughn, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen played at like a all-state level in high school.
Yeah.
Right. He actually knew the mechanics of throwing the baseball. Kevin Costner, who's been in countless sports movies, played baseball, knows how to throw a baseball. Eddie Harris, and you guys would probably know the name of the actor before
Chelsea
me.
Ross, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that.
I call him Billy Bob Thornton's older brother.
Billy Bob Thornton's, sure. Yeah, exactly.
He looks like him.
He could not throw at all. I mean, it was not at all believable.
And he was their ace too, right?
And he was their ace.
Yeah.
So that to me, like, I find it hard to believe that just by rubbing some junk on the ball, he's suddenly the ace in the rotation and they're going to beat this Indians team. I don't think so.
I'll say this about him though, is that like admittedly his arm was jelly. So he was doing everything he could to stay in the league because he was on the outs. So is it possible that it's an actor's choice for him to throw that poorly? To mimic a pitcher at the end of his rope, throwing junk to try to get by?
I mean, that may not have been acting Badway. His arm may literally have been dead, and that was the best he could do. Like he tore a labrum after he was cast, and they didn't have the budget to find somebody new.
But I'll be to his credit though, he looked like end of his career Jamie Moyer or Greg Maddux. Like he looked like a pitcher who was at the end of his rope.
Oh, I mean, he couldn't break a pane of glass with that fastball.
Yeah.
At the end of his rope.
I like the idea of what you said earlier, where you guys said, did Roger Dorn unintentionally win like GM of the year? And like, did Jake Taylor unintentionally win sort of coach of the year too? Right. And it's like, when you're a sports fan, as we all are, you watch these teams and you think, man, this guy's an idiot. He has no idea what he's doing. Roger Dorn was an idiot and had no idea what he was doing. Jake Taylor was a pretty good coach, right? But it's funny because he really did luck himself in with Randy Quaid in the outfield heckling the players, and Jake Taylor becoming an amazing coach here while Lou was in the hospital getting a quadruple bypass.
I hate to say it. It's got to be said, the elephant in the room. Probably the best thing to happen to this team was Lou getting that heart attack, right, guys? Yeah. I mean, sorry, Lou.
You don't wish it on anybody, but
Jake Taylor worked out. Jake Taylor is the perfect coach for this team. Ty knows this, that catchers make great managers, MLB managers. They know the game. They're smart. They can be personal with the last pitcher on the roster to any kind of hitter. And Taylor knew how to push all the right buttons. He knew how to massage the egos. And I don't know if Lou might be too old for that kind of thing. I don't know. He couldn't take it.
I mean, I think Dorn is a terrible GM. And I think he sold Parkman because he had no choice. He overpaid for the team.
Yep.
He outbid himself by $50 million, I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
To buy the Indians went up from $100 million.
Yeah, negotiated
initially to $150.
Yep.
Paid too much for the franchise. There's that gripping scene where his accountant tells him you can run the team for 2 months. you overpaid for the franchise. You can run the team for 2 months. And so he lucked into Tanaka. I think it was ultimately a net gain because Rube Baker, they didn't know what they had in Rube Baker. And when they saw him out there, I mean, you saw him playing more than you saw Parkman playing, even when Parkman was still on the team.
Yeah.
And so my hunch is that there was probably some scuttlebutt behind the scenes, like, do we really even need Parkman? He gives us 40 home runs in the lineup, but he's a dick. He wears the jacket. He smokes in the clubhouse and everybody hates him. So even though he had to make that trade out of necessity to kind of keep the lights on, I don't think that was any stroke of genius. I just think it was something that he had to do. Jake Taylor, on the other hand, Badway, 100%. He was the right guy for this team. He was the perfect coach. He was a player's coach when he had to be. I think he knew how to push the buttons. He was recently retired, so he knew all these guys. They respected him.
Yep.
Lou Brown himself said, the guys all look up to you. They all look up to you. And they did. He was the perfect manager for this team. So Dorn, not so much, but Taylor, manager of the year. I mean, they went to the ALCS. They went to the World Series, of course.
Yeah. What about like going into this year, right? You're a fan of this team. They had this Cinderella story the year before where they won the pennant and they came out of nowhere. All the fans are riding high going into this year. They're thinking, man, the Indians they're back. They're gonna be great, right? It takes Bob Uecker all of a couple games to start getting blasted on the air again? Like what are the expectations as a fan going into this year and then getting absolutely crushed when these guys are just a bunch of bums? Before you had Taylor, before you had some of these sort of crazy moves that sort of worked out in their favor, like what would your expectations be going into the year with this team?
Everybody's got unrealistic expectations for their teams. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, you got a team that's making a deep playoff run. You're sucked in, and as a fan base, I think you at least owe it to the team to try, right? To try to support them and kind of get them through the slow start if there happens to be one. But you can't help but be excited about it.
I mean, they found diamonds in the rough in the previous season. They found Willie Mays Hayes. They found Rick Vaughn. They found Pedro Serrano. These guys were newcomers, and they were essentially collected off the trash heap because Rachel Phelps, the vile owner, wanted to move the team to Miami. And then they hit on all of them. That was part of the charm of the initial movie. So if you're a fan, you win the division. Expectations for the following season is not that the team's going to bottom out. It's like, oh my God, we found all of these rookie stars. They're all still on the same team. Going into this season, the team's under new management. It's Dorn's team at the start of this movie. So no reason to think, if you're a then Indians fan, that this isn't going to be a better version of what we saw in the first movie, especially since they signed Parkman, who was going to add 40 home runs to the lineup. Now, it disintegrated, but nonetheless, I wouldn't have blamed any fan of the team for having higher expectations. It seems fair to me.
As a fan base, I mean, do you respect Dorn as the owner? Like, do you just accept him? I don't think Dorn was a fan favorite. I feel like fans can see right through somebody like him as a player being kind of like a prima donna, and all of a sudden this guy's running the team. I feel like it'd be questionable right out of the gate.
Drew, I'm curious to get your reaction to Dorn.
So I love Roger Dorn for the comedic reasons, right? Because even in the first movie, I thought he was hilarious because he was obviously thought he was better than what he was. And he had all kinds of ridiculous, don't touch my face, all of that stuff, the whole cheating with his wife and the drama with him and Wild Thing. And then you go to this movie, this dude's a total joke, and I loved it. And I'm all for it. Like, he was unintentionally hilarious. And I think the idea of him making this big splash as an owner, trying to sign Parkman, I mean, I can't fault the guy, right? He tried to make a big splash, try to make something, big for the team and the fans. But I love the idea of a player GM. Like, I'm a fan of the idea of that, and especially it being him. I don't know if you guys like that. Has that happened in sports that you can remember? Because I don't think that's ever happened, according to what I would remember. Right? Has that ever happened?
I feel like there's been some player GM. I just can't. I mean, I guess it's more ownership than actually doing the day-to-day trading, signing, that kind of thing.
I mean, we all know Peyton Manning was running that team, so that's maybe not the GM, but
I guess you go John Elway. But my question, this is what I find one of the most unrealistic things about this movie. So at the end of one, right? So we know in one that Ricky Vaughn slept with Roger Dorn's wife, right? It was unintentional, but it happened. It can't undo it. It happened. And they did make up kind of in the end, it was, they won, punch in the face, and then they celebrated together. Now that Dorn is Vaughn's boss, like, I feel like he should have traded him right away, right? Don't you just trade him for as much as you can get, because this asshole slept with my wife. Like, it's not over. To me, it's not over if I were Dorn.
Well, they made good. They made good. They made good.
I mean, Dorn... Okay, I promise not to kill you anymore, but I feel like in the back of my mind, maybe I'm a petty man. I don't know. I would have traded him and then said, sorry, pal. It was a good deal. I couldn't pass it up. But in the back of my mind, this guy was gone the second I got power.
The scene where they bury the hatchet in one is also, I think, the unintentional comedy king of the edited version. Because in the actual movie, he says, strike this mother effer out.
Yeah.
And in the edited version, obviously you can see what his lips are saying, but the audio is strike this guy out. That's how the edited version, that's how they kind of settle their differences.
Couldn't even go mother, father. Couldn't do it.
Mother, father.
No, couldn't. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like they buried the hatchet. I think there have been plenty of other examples where, a player retires and then is recruited into upper management or a scouting department or in the coaching department. We've certainly seen examples in other sports. The NFL, it happens all the time where ex-players become GMs and the like. So it's not out of the question. What I think is a little bit weird is, and I mean, we see this if you're like an NFL fan and you follow the Cowboys, like they have an owner / GM.
Yeah.
And that combination is, I think, pretty rare. Usually the owners are rich enough they can hire somebody who knows how to push the papers and make those moves.
Unless they think they know better.
It's not a good idea.
Like having the firsthand playing experience is valuable to being a coach and maybe even being a GM on some level. But simply being an owner doesn't qualify you to be the GM. It's a different skill set altogether.
I'll say this, as an Eagles fan, I hope Jerry Jones stays the GM of the Cowboys for all
right,
of eternity.
exactly.
And I know you're a Giants fan, so I think we agree on that. So
100%.
Before we move on from Dorn, I just want to ask you guys: is Dorn taking one for the team? Possibly the best scene in baseball movie history.
Wow. I mean, the best scene in baseball movie history is Roy Hobbs hitting the lights in The Natural.
Well, if you want to go nostalgic, if you want to
go nostalgic and like actual,
if you want to go fantastical, sure.
Yeah. But it is, I think, a stroke of comedy brilliance.
Yeah.
His
to
face
put him in
when
there.
He gets hit.
I mean, the best scene I think featuring Dorn is before that. It's not so much him getting hit. It is when he comes into the coach's office and says, "Guys, I have good news. This morning at 9:10 a.m. I activated myself."
Yep. That's the picture.
And then he's wearing like the trench coat and he just sort of like unveils it like he's Superman. That's the funny scene.
He exposes himself. Yeah.
That's the funny scene.
That's the photo of this episode has to be.
It has to be. That to me is the funny scene for Dorn, but him stepping in there and the theatrics when he gets plunked are pretty great too.
Yeah. We're giving Corbin awards for this movie because this franchise for sure, because it's just phenomenal.
I want to know how much money he's actually lost, right? Because think about it. So he lost. I mean, he got negotiated up to buy this team at $150 million. Rachel Phelps inherited the team when her husband died, right? That was the whole thing. So he's at least $150 million, and then she bought the team back from Dorn at a quote substantial profit. How much money was a substantial profit, and how much money is this guy like been taken to the cleaners? Like he's getting like destroyed.
What an investment! Oh my god.
She doesn't need to move to Miami. She's making the money off of buying and reselling the team here. It's crazy. So like.
He had to activate himself. He needed the paycheck.
Yeah. Theo, and we're not going to do it because we already did it. But if you guys are a fan of the show, we do the villain scale. Rachel Phelps, we already put her through the scale. She had a 10 out of 20, if I'm not mistaken. It was a 5 for look and style, 1 for her hideout layer, 3 for plan, and 1 for henchman. Yeah. But maybe it goes, I don't know if it goes up or down if we were to rescale her, but she had a 10 out of 20.
She had henchmen this time, at least. She had those two, Chip and Dale looking goons holding her purse for her. So, I mean, other than that.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Of course.
Yeah. What were your favorite scenes in the movie? Forget about the characters, forget about the plot for a second, but favorite scenes that resonated the most with you in this film?
Well, obviously the door hit by pitch.
Sure.
Also the Rube hit by pitch, and the whole thing of his ankle just being gnarly, and his speech in the locker room after game 1, between game 1 and game 2, after the brawl, where he just chastises everyone for taking the game for granted. That's kind of like, for some reason, that really stuck out to me, and it was one of the more, heartfelt and genuine moments in the movie. Also Tanaka knocking himself out on the reveal of the signing.
I would say the dynamic, any scene between Tanaka and Serrano, I love the relationship between the two, and the fact that they kind of play off one another. Like that partnership and sort of relationship was just, I have this vivid memory of being a kid watching this movie and the marbles gesture, right? As he's running. That's, another candidate for episode cover here, but the scene where he's doing the marbles thing is just, that's like forever ingrained in my memory as a child watching this movie.
That I'm glad you brought that up. So that's one for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, Serrano running around the bases doing the marbles thing back to Tanaka is pretty great. But the scene in which Tanaka has to go to his pocket translator to figure out how to say what he's trying to say. He still doesn't really say it right. Like he just found the next closest word. That was written really well. Yeah. And when he kind of goes, ooh, and he's doing the marble gesture, that is funny as hell. That one for me. The second one, this gets me every time I watch this movie. I must have seen this movie 50 times now. The one that gets me every time is Lou Brown in the hospital bed, jumping up and down, pointing. Can we curse on this show?
Oh, you can say whatever you want.
Pointing up at the British, draw, whatever he's, Downton Abbey, whatever he's watching. And saying, I love this shit, I may move to England. Gets me every freaking time.
That was my other one. Lou Brown is awesome, and he's in the hospital gown, looking frail as hell, and he's about to have another heart attack. Like those scenes were hilarious to me. I just loved it.
Where they're losing this tragic stuff.
Yeah, this is tragic. Yes. And he's going in. I got me Plan B, a transistor radio with an earphone. He has that deep, grovelly voice and the push broom stash. What a character, man.
So you talk about a 5% score. I mean, let's go back to the 5%. I mean, they found a way to like make Taylor the manager and still have a great role for Lou in the hospital there. I mean, it's good writing.
Yeah. So
for a throwaway sequel, I mean, what more could you want?
We ripped the hell out of Tom Berenger in the first movie, right? Because we kind of said he was a scumbag trying to get after Rene Russo. Man, talk about total redemption story. Yeah. Like his hard turn back to hero of the movie, amazing mentor, great coach, just good partner, man. I love Tom Berenger in this movie. Like one of my other scenes, it's not like super inspiring is when he goes to Wild Thing's apartment and rips him a new one. And then Wild Thing just kind of snaps out of it and he comes back with the hair and all that other stuff. Because I want to talk to you guys also about this Wild Thing transformation into this corporate shill, for lack of a better word, right? What do you guys think caused him to sell out? Was it the agent? Do you think it was that? Do you think he maybe had this taste of success? Because he came from what, the California Penal League?
California Penal League, yeah.
He never had $1 in his life, Drew. All right?
Yeah.
He gained $1.
It's a shock.
Towards the end of Major League One, when the paychecks started piling up, which I'm sure he was spending right away. And then once he realized how much he could make if he just, quote unquote, played ball. Yeah. And oh, by the way, my agent who's telling me to do this is this supermodel girl or whoever, who's, of course he's going to listen to her. And of course he's going to get brainwashed. I don't blame him. That's kind of like what happens for a guy to get success out of nowhere.
Was he on a league minimum salary? Because he came out of nowhere, right? So he probably wasn't making that much. So maybe he's trying to cash in on his next contract. Like what, how does that work?
Yeah, he's probably on a minor league deal. I'm sure he ends up getting the league minimum, maybe arbitration. I don't know how it worked back in the early 90s, but
he had status. He had status because of the look,
the gimmick,
sure,
and because of the shtick. And so he probably in that first year, and even in the second year, made way more on endorsements. That's why that's part of the thing here. I mean, look, he certainly would not be the last guy on earth to be changed, to change his entire ethos after meeting a pretty woman.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't. And that being said, I did struggle with the sudden turn because everything this guy was about was he's a motorcycle dude. He is unconventional. He doesn't take any crap from anybody. Like, just not like a friendly guy, like everything about him that we came to love in the first movie was completely antithetical to this version of him. And so I struggled a little bit with how they could make that turn just in one off season. I kind of felt like even though the Serrano turn was equally as striking, that one at least you could see happening.
Yeah.
That one at least was more believable than suddenly Rick Vaughn becoming this corporate shill. And I struggle with that. That part to me, like if we talk about comparing 1 to 2, in retrospect, with where Vaughn started to where he ended up, I mean, he ended up right back where he started, spoiler, but that transition in the offseason to me was like, I don't know, that was a little much.
Wouldn't it may have made more sense for him to like maybe when he gets his temper up to show more like flashes of the Wild Thing, like for him to just bow down to a guy like Parkman, who I know is a lot bigger than him, or like if to actually it be a fair fight between him and Willie Mays Hayes, and wherein in the last movie I feel like he would have just knocked a guy like that out and no seconds flat. For him to just completely turn into this wussified version of himself, where the Wild Thing isn't even a part of his being, it does seem a little unrealistic to me.
The other thing, they went a step too far with the fastball velocity.
Yeah.
He was throwing 97, 99. I think he clocked out at 101 at the end of Major League One.
Yeah.
And at one point, he references, I threw so-and-so an 87 mile an hour fastball. And it was like, it ended up being the guy's first home run. He lays down on the couch and, his girlfriend at the time is trying to console him. But like, what I would like to know more of as a baseball fan is, was this a conditioning issue?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was it such that the money really went to his head and he just sort of mailed in all of the strength and conditioning stuff that pitchers are supposed to do? Even still, I don't know if you're able to throw 97. I don't know, barring injury or something catastrophic, what else would cause your fastball to dip 10 miles an hour like that? It's the easiest pitch to throw. I don't know how suddenly you would throw 10 miles an hour slower unless there's an injury or if you just really do no conditioning whatsoever.
I think an off season with zero stretching or any kind of movement, maybe his arms tightened up. And then when he got to spring training, he realized, shit, I don't have it.
You mean he's not Henry Rowengartner with the tight arm there? Like
exactly, yeah. No, it's too tight. It's too tight. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not magically tight.
That to me was striking. That suddenly he was throwing 10 miles an hour or less, and then he shaves the back of his head. He gets a pep talk from Jake Taylor, and now he's throwing 100 again.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you guys. Did you think it was a conscious decision? Because the way they painted it almost seemed like he's saving his arm because he's got to get that next contract. He's not going to go all in on it. But it's counterintuitive because if you save your arm and you're getting just completely crushed every time you're throwing these slow pitches as your quote fastball, you're not going to get the contract. So maybe him saving his arm was more like this excuse for really not having it anymore, or like you said, bad conditioning. Because I couldn't tell which way they were trying to go with it.
Yeah, or his agent telling him, "Listen, don't throw your arm out. Let's get this contract."
Yeah.
So take care of your body.
I mean, at one point he does reference that he's naming his pitches now for marketing purposes.
I was just going to ask you. I want to rate the pitches. I want your opinion on this, Ty. You're the resident Major League Two. So give us the name of the pitch, maybe what the equivalent is, and maybe which one you think is probably the toughest to hit.
Well, I mean, if he's got the Terminator on, if he's got the fastball on, if he can throw 103, that's probably the hardest. He talked about some of the other pitches that he had. And one he said was a forkball. He was working on a forkball slider combination, which I believe was the Humiliator. And
great name.
And then the Eliminator was, I think he said, a screwball split finger combination. These pitches exist already, by the way. They're not called this. Everybody calls them differently. It's one of the ongoing debates in Major League Baseball. What makes a curveball versus a sweeper curve versus a slurve. Like, everybody has their own variation of some of these breaking pitches. So all of these things exist. Given the way that he threw the Eliminator, it looked like a circle change. It was a slower pitch that tailed into a righty. That looked like a circle change. The Humiliator, which is the forkball slider, that way that's basically a sinker. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these pitches exist.
And I'm trying to think of what Parkman hit at yard for him that he renamed to the Masturbator.
That was the Humiliator.
Was that the Humiliator? Which is now the Masturbator.
The Masturbator.
Right. Yeah.
So do you guys think that his last season was a flash in the pan, or do you think he was actually that good and he got it back? Like, do you think this was a sort of a one time, and I don't know if there's an equivalent baseball player that you guys can think of that was maybe a Rick Vaughn type person?
Guys, I'm concerned about the future of Rick Vaughn. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this is just maybe one or two more years, and he doesn't know how to pitch.
I mean, he's a closer is what he is.
That's what I was going to say. Is he
should be starting. Yeah, you're right.
He seems like he belongs in the bullpen.
And he had both roles in both movies. He should be a closer throwing gas, and that's it. Yeah.
I mean, there's only a couple things you need out of a closer. You need a guy with a blazing fastball. You need a guy with some sort of off-speed pitch. And sometimes it's a changeup. In the case of Mariano Rivera, who is like a near unanimous pick, or was a unanimous pick, I guess, into the Hall of Fame, he had a fastball and a cutter. That's all he threw. right?
Yeah.
Just something that's not the fastball. And they also need to have a screw loose. Let's be real. That is the role that a closer served. You got to be a little bit nuts to have that.
Yep.
To have that role. And Rick Vaughn has all three. I don't know about stamina, right? If his fastball is dipping 10 miles an hour in an off season, just from signing a deal with like Wheaties or wherever, that
Right
tells
guard.
me that maybe there isn't a whole lot of juice in that arm. So if he's really concerned about extending the lifespan of his career, he should be a closer. He should be in the bullpen. He should come out wearing the horn rims, the leather jacket, with the song playing. That's a hell of an intimidation factor.
It is.
And that's marketing by itself right there. You don't have to go, you don't have to go preppy marketing. You could go badass closer leather jacket marketing guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And to your question, Drew, there are plenty of major leaguers, plenty of starting pitchers who along the way, either due to age or because a manager thought better, started as a starting pitcher and ended up in the bullpen as a closer. I mean, that happens all the time. So it would not be unprecedented. It wasn't unprecedented then. It certainly wouldn't be now.
What do you guys think about his apartment? I mean, he made enough money to have a sweet hideout there. Like, I don't know. What was if you could walk away with one piece of memorabilia from Wild Things apartment, what would you be taking home to put in your crib? What do you think, Badway?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, that red couch is something else. To tell you what, this thing was like a cross between a strip club, a sports bar, and like a '90s nightclub. Late '80s, early '90s nightclub, and he wasn't sure what it wanted to be. What do you think, Ty?
So there is a funny thread that I found actually when I was doing a little bit of research on this movie. There is a guy on an audio message board who commented about 10 years ago asking, hey, does anybody know what high-end speakers Rick Vaughn had in his apartment? I'm not kidding. And I was going to send you guys the link, and I figured I'd spring it on you because
I'm glad you saved it for that.
It's absolutely fantastic. Somebody, I believe, has the answer to this. I mean, they paint, I can send you the link now as we're doing this. Somebody grabs a screenshot of this, and there's a long discussion here about what these are. And eventually they come to the conclusion that these are legacy speakers. They're the Audio Whisper series. And at least by some accounts, they may be worth $20,000 a pair.
Oh my God.
So we know one man on the internet's answer is the speakers.
Yeah.
The pool table was kind of sweet, too.
I like that. That would be in my house, his pool table.
The pool table was kind of sweet. I have a problem with the apartment. I do.
What is it?
There's no way that guy, the motorcycle guy who doesn't wake up in time to eat breakfast, like he may have rehabilitated his image in the offseason. There is no way that guy owns that apartment.
Yeah.
Did his agent interior decorate that thing?
It's the agent. It's not his
but
style.
It's too bachelor patty for her to have done it though.
She did it for the look, you know?
I don't know.
That's what it is. She did it for
the
look.
Like he didn't buy those ceramic tigers.
No,
Somebody bought those ceramic tigers.
There's no way that guy lives there.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
He's renting an Airbnb in 94.
I could kind of see Parkman living there.
That looked like a Parkman apartment.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think Parkman lives there.
Yeah.
Parkman could live there. Willie Mays Hayes could live there.
Willie Mays Hayes could definitely live there.
You know, I could even see we saw a little bit of Corbin Burnson's pad in Major League One. You could see Corbin Burnson
with the wicker furniture.
Roger Dorn, I guess I should use their character name. You could see him living in a place like that, but certainly not Jake Taylor. Jake Taylor is too salt of the earth. Certainly not Rube Baker. Rube Baker's on a farm.
Yeah. If Dorn had a second apartment in Florida, in Miami, that's what it would look like.
Well, his wife probably divorced him after the last movie, obviously, right? So maybe it was his place. Maybe
he's got an estate. He's got an estate in Cleveland. He's got a beach house in California, and then he's got that bachelor pad down there in Miami.
You also said this, Ty, and you asked us our favorite scenes. Underratedly, one of the best scenes of this movie is him doing the commercial for right guard. It's on the polo course. Is that what you call it? I don't even know. What is it? Polo grounds?
Who the hell knows?
I'm not fancy enough to know what it's called, but playing polo, he could not get those lines out. And I just, that's another iconic scene to me that just lives in my brain. So
I think it's possible that he just learned how to read a year ago.
That's true. That's true. A couple things I know, man, we there's so many things to talk about with this movie, man. But I want to ask you guys, you mentioned, we talked a little bit about Tom Berenger being the perfect manager for this team. What do you think of his techniques versus Lou? Like, Lou was just selling cars 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, he was selling cars on a car lot. Was he really a good manager? Or again, it was Taylor and the leadership that he had. There was a little bit of motivation, I guess, with the Rachel Phelps thing. But I mean, Ty, what do you think? Like, who's your kind of coach? Are you going with Lou, or are you going with Tom Berenger?
Well, I mean, Tom Berenger was a player's coach.
Yeah.
And he knew these guys, they respected him. You know, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Like, Lou Brown himself said, all the guys look up to you. You're the right guy for the job. You have everything you need. You know what you need to do here. And like Badway, like you said, catchers make great managers.
Sure.
It's sort of tried and true. It's a formula in Major League Baseball. So there's no doubt in my mind Jake Taylor was the right guy to manage that team. And there's probably a reason Lou Brown was selling cars 2 years ago. He I think plays an interesting character and definitely is a motivator in a very old school way. But in terms of like actual managerial prowess, you got to give it.
Yeah.
Got to give it to Jake Taylor.
I think Lou's more of a mentor than a manager. Poor guy. I mean, year and a half into his dream job, you know, it took him 30 years to get there, has a heart attack. He's probably not getting back to the bigs, right? Or at least as the top dog, right? It's not like he's going to get a job with the Yankees next year for their managerial opening.
Did you feel bad for him that he couldn't watch the game? Like, I felt kind of bad for him. Like, he had to listen to it on the radio. Like, I'm glad he was able to, but I felt bad. I mean, did you? I don't know.
No, I was a fan of Taylor making up that he was dying. That's great motivational speech, guys.
And
talk to Lou. He's not going to make it.
The assistant's giving him the side eye the whole time because he knows he's full of it.
Yeah.
It's great motivation. I mean, he knows what the guys need, and then they all went out. Let's win it for Lou. But
I mean, so Lou didn't want the Gipper speech.
No, he didn't.
No.
He didn't want that.
Cut to it. Yeah.
Jake did it anyway. Yeah. And to be honest, I'm not sure if it would have had such impact if not for, again, Rube Baker serving a critical role in this movie, standing up, awkwardly saying, "Hell, when a man's lights are about to go out, the fat lady can't sing if it's not over." Long pause, everybody erupts. Right?
Wiser words have never been spoken.
Rube Baker, again, coming through in the clutch.
Wiser words never been spoken.
A man of many words.
I'm a fan of Jake Taylor's, just motivational technique, and it just helping Rube with the Playboys and the magazines. Like, I thought that was a genius idea, and I loved his motivation. The Dorn piece, all of these things, man. I think I would play for him. He seems like a great coach.
Can I pivot to a different thing that we haven't really talked much about yet?
Absolutely.
Please.
Bob Uecker in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Bob Uecker in this movie is fantastic. He was fantastic in the first one. He's fantastic in this one. Monty is equally as goofy and meaningless in this movie as he was the first.
That's a perfect word.
Right? But Bob Uecker, in his role, just sets the scene. And I mean, everything is sarcastic. And right away, right out of the chute, like you said, Drew, right out of the chute, he is negative and sarcastic. Game one, fly ball, right field. Bob Uecker says he'll need a rocket up his ass to catch that one. Like, kind of without warning. You don't expect it to hit. He was funny as hell.
He was.
And made the movie from the standpoint of sort of setting the scene and creating the ambiance. And I think speaking to the skepticism that Indian fans probably had in this make-believe universe, he was that guy who kind of gave voice to that and was just awesome.
One of the best line reads in the movie is off of one of Vaughn's home runs, just, "Oh, shit."
We thought about making that the intro clip, but it's like, I think what's cool, I mean, obviously I'm a casual baseball fan, but when you watch other teams and sports and all that other stuff, mostly like on regular national television, it just seems like the baseball announcers, especially the team announcers, have such a connection with the fans, you know, and they're sort of an extension of the fan base. You think about some of the famous, you know, announcers. I mean, Euchre himself, right? But it's like, I liked how you're experiencing the team kind of through Bob Euchre, and he is the perfect sort of vessel for you to experience the ups and downs of this team. And I feel like he's such an underrated actor, man. Like, I remember when we did the first movie, I kept thinking, oh, the guy from Mr. Belvedere, not knowing that this guy was like a famous, you know, baseball announcer.
Voice of the Brewers forever.
Like me being an idiot. But he makes this movie. Like, if you took anyone else and put a different announcer in there, like an actor, right? Just a traditional actor, I don't think the movie would have had the gravitas that it has.
Yeah,
especially
more the movie needs realism. Like a sports movie needs the realism for it to be taken somewhat seriously, even in a goofy comedy.
Yeah, I mean, and he is a broadcasting legend.
Yeah. He's amazing.
You know, he's up there with Vin Scully, who was the voice of the Dodgers for years. Euchre is like pushing 90 at this point, still calling games for the Brewers, and you know, still doing a great job. So the fact that they got him in this movie, he was definitely authentic on those calls, and I think it added so much to the film.
He's a good actor. He's actually a good actor. Like, you could tell when you get people in here and it's like, oh, you know, you get somebody, it's like, oh, try to make them act. Like, he seemed very natural. Obviously it's baseball, but like the line reads were perfect. His expressions, like you said, the line, oh shit. I was shit. That gets me every time.
He'll need a rocket up his ass to catch this one. Yeah.
I wonder too, like, if you're a fan of baseball and you're one of these announcers, like, imagine when the team sucks. I mean, like, that's got to be torture. You better love the game. You gotta watch better love baseball.
162 of these things, man.
I think baseball is impossibly difficult to call.
Yep.
And, you know, like football, hockey, basketball, nearly every other sport has more tempo to it. But baseball, I mean, it used to be a lot worse before they implemented some rules to try and make the game shorter. But you go swaths of time where the announcers are basically doing a podcast on their own.
What do you talk about, right?
Yeah.
It's like I mentioned Vin Scully. Vin Scully called games on his own. He was a solo operation for years as a Dodgers commentator.
Crazy.
How in the universe do you do that when you've got so much downtime in baseball is beyond me. So it is impossibly difficult to call those baseball games, to keep the flow of the game, to keep the fans entertained who are watching at home and still interested in the game. It's definitely a rare talent.
I want to talk about two things before we kind of wrap up here. The first one is, I want to talk about Randy Quaid and the Fairweather fans, or maybe he's the Fairweather fan. I don't know. You know, so talk about that in a second. Then we'll talk a little bit about the ending. There's some hypotheticals here, but let's just address the fan base here. Like, imagine you're a fan of this team and they suck so bad for so long, and then you finally get this amazing Cinderella season, and then they're good, and then they're coming back to this. Like, is it fair weather if they immediately start emptying out of the stadium? Like, is that okay? Should they be allowed? Like, should Randy Quaid be allowed to celebrate the win here? Is he allowed? Like, he hated them.
No, absolutely not. And the fair weatherness of the Cleveland fans to like automatically go from sellouts to like 2,000 in the stands, I think they called it at one point. You called it.
It's pathetic.
They're not giving him a chance. It's like, this team was in the World Series last year. Let's give it come on, give him a break.
I mean, Randy Quaid though, he was diehard.
He was still there. I guess.
He was still there, and
yeah, at least he showed up.
At least he showed up. He was hate watching, but Randy Quaid first and foremost was a fan of Rick Vaughn. He was a fan of Rick Vaughn, and that was the reason why he wore the shirt inside out and the X over his inside out hat. That was the reason for his issues with the team, because all the while, once Rachel Phelps regained ownership, that team started playing, and they showed the news clippings as they were elevating in the standings. So he was there. He was watching all those games, and right up until the bitter end, in that playoff game, the Game 7, when Ricky Vaughn shaves the back of his head again and comes out and blow it out your ass, largemouth. Like that scene, right up until the bitter end, Randy Quaid was out because Rick Vaughn was the guy he cared the most about. I'm kind of mixed on this because in this movie, in this universe, the Cleveland franchise was worse far more than they were, or was bad far more than they were good. And so even though it was kind of like a flash in the pan, and they ended up having a good season and going to the playoffs, winning the division, blah, blah, blah. There was probably still kind of this deep-seated distrust of ownership, deep-seated distrust of like these new guys who kind of all popped at the same time. And so I could see a world in which, even though it sucks, I could see a world in which the fans just like bail on the team a little bit quicker than you'd expect.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I think, you know, we talked about this Badway a bunch of episodes ago, but man, our Last Row Movie Awards for 2023, it's going to be a crowded that guy category because Randy Quaid, I mean, like you said it, Ty, like he's like the star of the show in this movie. Maybe he's even a main character at this point. I don't know if he can be in the that guy category, but
he's the best character.
He's amazing.
He has enough scenes.
He's amazing. He's amazing. So what about and we didn't even get a chance to talk about Rachel Phelps' demotivational speech. Maybe we could save that for later, but I want to talk about the ending of this movie and how ballsy it was for Wild Thing to ask Tom Berenger, not even ask, just tell him.
Tell him.
He wanted Parkman.
I want Parkman.
Like, Ty, would you allow, as a baseball manager, would you allow Wild Thing to do that? When he was hitting, I think, 900 or something?
Euchre said he's hitting 900 against Vaughn.
Just over 900 against Vaughn. No, absolutely not.
Like, how
absolutely
crazy
not.
was that?
Let's send him back to the bullpen. Absolutely not. It makes for a great story.
Yeah.
It makes for a great story. You know, I want Parkman. And Serrano want to bat. It shows that Jake Taylor is this player's manager. He's got this intuition, this sixth sense, where he's able to kind of see the future in a sense and give these guys the benefit of the doubt. But
except he doesn't let Dorn do what he wants to do.
Doesn't let Dorn.
Doesn't let Dorn run. Doesn't let Dorn swing or run. But
no.
At least he got him in the game.
But even that is a sixth sense. You know, finding a way to kind of take advantage of the fact that the lefty throws inside. But like, no, you're not walking the bases loaded to get the Jack Parkman.
What about you, Badway?
Just to settle a personal vendetta. I don't know. You could see it in his eyes, guys. You could see it in his eyes that he wanted him and he was going to take him.
He had confidence.
No freaking way. No freaking
way. When we were talking about this topic, when we were doing the notes, we sort of set this up. We're like, well, maybe it would have made sense to do it. And then we actually played out the game scenario. We're like, hell no, this is the dumbest thing you could possibly do.
There's just no way.
Yeah. I mean, never a scenario where it makes sense.
Yeah. No way that happens.
I mean, there's a scenario Parkman hits a grand slam. There's a scenario he walks Parkman because he doesn't have control. And then all of a sudden the tying run is 90 feet away.
Right.
It's ridiculous. But anyways.
That does not happen in real life.
Yeah.
I know you said this, Ty, you don't want to talk about Major League 3, and I get that it's a sore subject, but it's been a long time since I've seen that one. Do they ever acknowledge what happened to this team after this movie? Because they beat them, and you know he ultimately gets them, but they don't. Do they ever say? Because this movie to me is ripe for a whatever happened after the credits kind of thing, where there's the text and everything. I think it's missing. Did they acknowledge it in Major League 3?
I don't remember, guys. I blacked out. I blacked out in Major League 3.
All I know is that the Buzz are actually the farm system for the Minnesota Twins.
The Twins, right?
Indians.
And Dorn's the owner, I think, of the Twins. So how did they let him buy another team, I guess, after the success of this maybe?
I doubt this team won the World Series. I feel like they flamed out the next round.
And then maybe one of the final questions I want to ask, and Barry, I already know your stance on this. Ty, I need to know where you stand on this because I feel personally... Look, I get 162 games is a long season. It's too long, in my opinion. Maybe dial it down a bit. It's too many games.
Yeah.
But I need to know, if you get into, like, what is an acceptable time to champagne? Now, we're talking about, like, you get into the playoffs. I think I can understand the champagning there because it's a long season. I get that. My personal opinion is, you should not champagne at the next player there, and it
The
seems
wild
like there's
card, for the wild card win.
There's like a subdued champagning of every level, and it's like they don't want to do it anymore. Like, what's your policy on champagning? When is it acceptable, and when is it like, hey, you know what? Maybe just save that for the World Series.
It's acceptable in all instances.
Okay.
I may be the most liberal champagner there.
Okay.
There is.
Is it because how often do you get a chance to do this? We might as well do it every chance we can.
I mean, look, life's short, guys. You get hit by a bread truck tomorrow.
Yeah.
You got to champagne.
You got to enjoy it while you can. I am also kind of a bit of a student of the champagning process. Not so much popping the champagne and like kind of spraying it around the locker room when it's got the plastic up and all that. Yeah. But I always appreciate the guys who are super creative, and like some relief pitcher brings a scuba mask. You know, there are other guys who bring like raincoats or just like other types of gear to celebrate the champagning, like taking it a step further. I'm a fan of that. And so the more I get of that, the better. I've not been too critical of guys who, you know, because I've seen it too. It's like, oh, you're like the sixth team in the playoffs this year. Let's pop the champagne. That's a little much.
Yeah.
You know, like you're celebrating.
We get it.
Like basically almost not making the playoffs.
Yeah. Congrats for going 83 and 79 or whatever.
But again, I subscribe to life's too short in most cases. And so if you want to celebrate, who am I to poo-poo?
I think to Drew's point, I mean, like after like the wild card win, you see the guy champagne again. You can tell they're half into it. They're kind of just doing it like, because the camera's on them and like, okay, we're expected to do this, so let's go ahead and do this. But really, they just want to drink a couple beers.
But like, imagine Tom Brady like champagning after the wild card round. He'd be like, "Get the hell out of here!" Like you can't because it's like you're premature. You didn't win the Super Bowl. Like it's not over yet. Like you didn't win, and that's what I think about.
But I bet Tom Brady celebrated just as hard with his last Super Bowl as he did his first because he's a competitive freak. So,
well, I would say the winning the Super Bowl, you should champagne. That's good. But
even
like,
if it's your sixth Super Bowl.
Yeah, but you win, you got it, right? But like if you win the wild card round of the NFL playoffs, like get out of here. They're going to be like, dude, we didn't win anything yet. Keep your eye on the prize. Yeah. Like it just seems like there's a little bit more liberal in baseball there.
Just imagine Tom Brady just knocking champagne bottles out of guys' hands.
He would be screaming at all of the players, like, get out of here. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's also, I would say, I feel like champagne is utilized a lot more in baseball.
I agree.
You know, like you see it in other sports, but you definitely don't see it as frequently, or you definitely see it more frequently, in baseball.
So maybe let's talk about our final thoughts on this movie. I won't blaspheme with Major League 3 here, Ty, but I'm going to start with you. Obviously, we know you're a fan. Did rewatching it again in preparation for this episode, did it change your mind on anything? Did you like it more? Did it bring you right back? Maybe how do you view this as a movie?
I just thought it held up pretty well. You know, movies from this generation, it's almost like 30 years old at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of times those movies, especially comedies, don't stay.
Yeah.
They kind of go stale. And again, maybe it's just that I saw this movie a lot and I'm obviously a fan of this movie, having watched it so many times. I thought it held. I thought it was funny. I thought if you watch it for the first time and didn't know anything about it, that you would, if I showed this to my wife, who has no interest in watching baseball movies and has heard of Major League anecdotally, probably through me, she would find it funny. There were funny moments in it that I think were back then and still are today. So the overarching theme is, I think if nothing more, it's still pretty amusing and I enjoyed it.
I think this movie also aged really well. And I feel like it dates itself less than the first one does. And maybe partially because it's PG and because it doesn't take itself too seriously. And it's just more of a farcical movie rather than kind of a little serious. We got the romance, everybody's doom and gloom, fighting for their lives, that kind of thing. And this is kind of just, here it is. Here's some comedy, laugh at it. It's the type of thing where I feel like younger fans of baseball today would still find enjoyment out of this movie, which you can't say too much about, live action movies from the 90s or 80s. So as far as rewatchability and as far as legacy goes, I think that 2 might outshine 1.
I think you nailed it. Like the first one feels, and I think it was 89, right?
Yeah.
The first one feels incredibly dated. This one feels timeless to me for whatever reason. It doesn't feel like a 1994 or 1995 movie. Like it just feels like a baseball movie. And I think it's got the perfect blend of comedy, heart, fun, like seriousness too. But the PG rating, I think, actually works well in its favor. The first one, I love the first movie. I think it's a great movie. But I think this one it's just, if I could pick between the two, I think I'd pick this one. It's just a fun movie. And I think it was a lot of fun watching this thing again. It brought me right back to when I was watching this growing up quite a bit. Yeah. So I totally agree with you guys.
Yeah. All right. So as we wrap up, while we have the third man in the booth, Ty, resident Major League expert and overall baseball movie aficionado, we thought we'd try out a quick draft of fictional baseball players that you start a franchise with. So we're going to go 5 rounds, snake style draft, because really all you need is 5 players, because when you watch these movies, you really only know the names of 5 or so players, so we might as well just do 5.
Right.
And we don't need to be here all night. We've already been here all night, so we'll give it a shot. So the guest gets first pick. Any fictional player you want. You can't pick Mickey Mantle from 61. You can't pick Ty Cobb from Cobb. Any fake player is on the board, though.
Roy Hobbs. I mentioned Roy Hobbs earlier from The Natural, but Roy Hobbs is the magic bat.
So you're going Hobbs 1.
Took out a light bank in the net. Yeah, you got to go Roy Hobbs 1.
I mean, you can't really argue with it. It's a classic pick. Otherworldly power, if you will. I mean, not of this earth or any other.
Pick me
realm.
out a Winter Bobby. I mean, The Natural is an all timer.
All right. Well, Drew, I'll go second. We'll give you a chance to do the snake, the wraparound while you think. I'm going to go a little unconventional, maybe unconventional. Maybe some might say, dark horse, best ball player of our generation, of any generation. I'm going Dottie Henson from League of Their Own.
I
mean, what can't she do? I don't care, male, female. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
She plays hardball. She plays it hard, and she plays ball.
That's such a good, we're sitting here talking about Jake Taylor. Yeah. And his leadership as a catcher, but Dottie Hinson in League of Their Own.
Yeah.
She carried
that team.
Jimmy Dugan was drunk half the movie.
Yeah.
So.
She managed the team as well. 1 year, only 1 year. I know it's a small sample size, but the talent's there, obviously. she could bring the husband along. That was really the only thing holding her back. So, Drew, you got 2.
All right. This is going to be a little controversial here too.
Ooh.
So I'm going, for a variety of reasons, I'm going Mel Clark, Angels in the Outfield.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. Because he's bringing the Angels. Because he's bringing the Angels. Because he dies. He's dead, right? He's bringing the Angels. He's old. He's all feet in the tub.
He's in the tub.
He's bringing the Angels. So I'm going Mel Clark first. I'm going unconventional. I'm going the opposite of you guys.
That's like 9 picks in 1. Actually, it's not bad.
And then, just to make it crazier, because I need somebody like this, I'm going Mr. Chet Steadman.
You're going double starting pitcher.
I'm going double
starting pitcher.
Yeah, because he's also probably going to die soon too, and then we'll get extra Angels. So I'm going Chet Steadman and Mel Clark. This is
there's like a whole
unconventional.
death pool angle here, Badway.
I mean, is he also an angel? But he's I don't know.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ty, how shocked are you that Chet Steadman went before Henry Rowan Gardner? I mean, this is just crazy. Having Rowan Gardner fall into my lap, but I don't know if I'm going to go that route, you guys.
No? Okay.
I need a Chet Steadman here. Put the sound clip.
I'm going to go old starting pitcher of my own, and I'm going Billy Chappell because I feel like I need an anchor on the rotation. Perfect game at Yankee Stadium. 200-game winner, surefire Hall of Famer. Kevin Costner, who we know is Mr. Sports Movie. He knows what to do. Billy Chappell for the love of the game.
Wow. Well, if you're going to put Henry Rowan Gardner to me at my second spot, I'm taking Henry Rowan Gardner.
I figured he'd be gone here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I can draft the top of the rotation starter, a little green, kind of annoying in the dugout.
Ty, he needs a second pitch. I mean, he's throwing straight fastballs. He's going to get creamed once the league gets a book on him.
Maybe. But nobody's ever seen an arm quite that tight.
Career longevity, though, I mean, you got him at 12 until possibly 42. So
right. If you get 30 years out of a starting pitcher, I mean, that's an investment. So my first, do I get two?
You're back to back here. Yep.
All right. So I'm going Rowan Gartner, and then I'm going to get my franchise shortstop, and I'm going Benny the Jet Rodriguez from San
I knew you were going
to. I was going there next. So I mean, who can
Benny
argue?
the Jet. I thought about taking him 1 overall.
Yeah, he was
Roy
up there.
Hobbs. Roy Hobbs is too much to pass up.
Yeah.
But I'm liking this team, guys. I got Roy Hobbs, Henry Rowan Gartner, and Benny the Jet.
You got youth and you got experience. I mean, that's true. And
right.
You got a pitcher.
This is better than any fantasy draft I've done in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So, just saying.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna go with. All right, so I got my catcher. I got my pitcher. I got experience. I need some youth, and I'm gonna go Kelly Leak. Bad News Bears. Little bit of an attitude problem. Understandably, he's got to cut out the smoking. He's got to cut out the swearing. But give me that young center fielder with all that room to grow. Hoping he's not just a big fish in a small pond. I have faith. Drew, you got two.
All right. I'm going unconventional. You guys are the baseball fans. I'm just going to build a team of just random guys here. So just to go completely the other way too. I'm just gonna go all pitchers here. I'm gonna get me
solidify it.
I need Kenny Powers on my team. That's who I need.
Locker room cancer though.
I need Kenny Powers because I feel like he's gonna bring this X factor to the team. You know how he is.
Ricky Vaughn there.
Yeah, a little bit of Ricky Vaughn, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I need Kenny Powers on my team. I'm a fan. Eastbound and Down, great show. Great show. And then I'm actually going to take another old guy that's washed up here too, but he's going to be my coach because he's going to be able to bring these guys together. I'm going Jake Taylor. I'm going to bring him on the team.
It's fair. I mean, you could even start him at catcher, player, coach if you want. If he's got the knees for it, Drew.
Yeah. And this is, assuming his knees aren't shot, but he's the only guy that can control Kenny Powers and then keep these other two dudes and the Angels all in line. So I need a little bit of Jake Taylor here.
No, I can't hate it. So it seems what I'm lacking is power.
Yeah.
I'm going to need some power here. So we talked about him briefly in the episode. We know he's got a bad attitude. We know he's got a shitty leather jacket. We know he smokes cigars.
Parkman.
But I need that. It looks like, 280, 40 home runs, 130 RBIs. Catcher or DH, he could, him and Dottie can figure it out. I'm sure he won't take any shit from Dottie.
No,
we're gonna go Parkman.
I'm surprised Parkman lasted this long.
Yeah. Just too good of a talent. I don't care about the attitude. We can fix it.
I was hoping I could have got him.
Yeah.
So I'm going with my final. I guess I get two here.
You got two at the end. Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of do things a little differently. Now, the problem that I'm running into is I'm going to draft Pedro Serrano.
Okay.
I don't know where Pedro Serrano fits into this lineup because Roy Hobbs is probably a better right fielder. Pedro's out there doing Tai Chi. Pedro's not necessarily interested now that he's found his inner Zen.
Right.
But I think Pedro could be a designated hitter. Roy Hobbs is getting up there, let's be honest. He may not be long for one of the defensive positions. So those guys can rotate at the DH spot. Provided Pedro gets his head on straight, he can be an extra pop of power because, again, I got Henry Rowan Gartner and Benny the Jet Rodriguez. Neither of those guys is contributing on offense. So, and then with my second pick, kind of to balance out that power and what is likely like a 198 average from Serrano, I'm also going to go to League of Their Own, go Marla Hooch.
She was on my list, man. Great
Marla
pick.
Hooch, second baseman. So I shore up my middle infield. Marla Hooch, Benny the Jet. Switch hitter, if memory serves. Was the best hitter in the league, if memory serves.
She could rake.
She could rake, and she was a very good defensive second baseman. So you pair her with Benny the Jet, you kind of lock down the middle of your infield.
Yeah.
we still have a problem at corner infield. Let's be real. That's going to be a problem trying to, like, those are the power positions. We're going to have to harvest power. I don't know if it's like Lou Collins from Little Big League as like my compensatory selection, a guy who won a batting title in his own right. But for my top 5, I've got Roy Hobbs, I've got Rowan Gartner, I've got Benny the Jet, I've got Pedro, and now I've got Marla Hooch.
Very nice. Okay, so to round out my team, I'm gonna go further than fictional. I'm gonna go not human, you guys. So we could talk Air Bud, 7th inning fetch, World Series champion, and MVP. I'm not going there. We could talk Ed the Chimp with Joey from Friends. He's a third baseman, Ty, if you need a third baseman.
Yeah, right.
We're not going Ed the Chimp.
Okay.
We're going with a mammal that can play all 9 positions at one time. I'm going Bugs Bunny from Baseball Bugs. First base Bugs Bunny, second base Bugs Bunny, third base Bugs Bunny, shortstop Bugs Bunny, pitcher Bugs Bunny. He beat the Gas House Gorillas all by himself. Go Bugs Bunny.
I forgot about Air Bud 7th inning fetch.
Oh, man.
There's nothing to remember. There's nothing to remember.
If this summer of sequels is worth its salt, you owe it to yourselves to do Air Bud Golden Receiver.
Oh man,
I know more about football than baseball.
Is that the second one? What's the first one? What sport is the first one?
Basketball.
Is it basketball?
Right?
Is it basketball?
Basketball.
Okay.
And I believe Golden Receiver was number 2.
Yeah.
And I think that's football. And then there's a soccer one too.
There's a volleyball one. Yep.
Yeah.
I
They had a whole
not?
Air Bud series.
Do they have a
Air
curling
Bud
one?
franchise. Which
Imagine
I believe
a dog
got
curling.
contentious. You guys know the backstory behind the Air Bud franchise?
I don't.
No.
Look it up on Wikipedia sometime for people who are listening. Look up the Air Bud. I believe it's Air Bud. There was some sort of squabble between the dog's owner and producers, and
sure.
It was a whole thing.
You know what the funniest part about Air Bud 7th inning fetch? When I looked it up, you would think he'd play center field, right? They have the dog playing first base. Can you imagine the shortstop just gunning one to first base, just expecting the dog to catch it with his mouth? It's just, I don't know what to say. All right, to close the draft, Drew needs his 5th player.
All right.
What do you got, Drew? The rest of the field is yours.
See, I feel like there's 2 people from Rookie of the Year that I want. One is a player and one is not a player, because I just feel like I need somebody else. I got all pitchers. Who am I going to get to help keep these guys in line as well?
Yeah.
Like I got Jake Taylor as a catcher, and I got all that there. I really wanted to go. I don't know if the guy's name is it Hato, the guy that says here's one for mommy, and he bashes it. But I'm not going to go him.
You're going villain. Okay,
I'm not going to go him. Actually, villain. I'm going Phil Brickma, because I want Phil Brickma on this team to help with his hot ice. To help keep they got a bunch of old guys, right? They gotta help them out. Their arms are all getting thrown out. They're in the tub. I need Phil Brickma on my team, Daniel Stern, and he's gonna help them with all the techniques. A pitching coach. I got a lot of pitchers. You know, between him and Jake Taylor, they'll keep these guys in line. I don't have enough guys to play any offense at all.
That's what the role players are for.
But that's okay. These are my guys.
You plan on winning every game 2-1. That's fine. That's respectful. And I'll tell you, Brickma's hot ice. You get help with Jake Taylor's knees.
That's what I mean. Between the knees,
throw it on the knees.
These old guys with their noodle arms and their lung cancer or whatever, maybe he's got something that'll help cure him. So I'm going Brickma. I wanted Hato, but I picked him instead.
All right.
So
to finalize, here are the rosters once and for all. Ty goes Roy Hobbs, Henry Rodengarter, Benny the Jet, Pedro Serrano, and Marla Hooch.
It's a great team.
Yeah, I feel good about that team.
Me and myself, Badway, go Donnie Hinson, Billy Chappell, Kelly Leak, Jack Parkman, and Bugs Bunny. Drew goes Mel Clark with Angels, Chet Steadman, Kenny Powers, Jake Taylor, and Phil Brickma.
It's the worst team of all time.
Chet Steadman's the best name that was drafted.
Great name.
Chet Steadman, Kenny Powers. You have the all-name team.
Yeah. I like the characters on my team. I'll put it that way. So that was fun.
Very different rosters. So people, let us know who has the best roster. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, I want to say thanks, Ty, for coming on, man. It's always great to have you. I think it's been since episode whenever we did Ghostbusters 2 back in like
it was way back in
2015.
the day.
Oh wow, yeah, it's been a while, guys. Look, I listen to you religiously. I hope people out there who are listening, go on out to whatever platform they're on and give you 5 stars and review the show and tell your friends. Like, we're all kind of in this together. The podcasting thing. That's how the shows get bigger. You got to tell your buddies about it. Got to tell your friends. You got to post about it. You guys put a lot into this, and I enjoy the hell out of every episode. So I'm honored to be here. I'm glad that you gave me a movie I know a lot about.
Absolutely.
There's a handful of these, that I could probably do every line. So if ever you happen upon another, just give me a shout out. I'd love to come back.
Absolutely.
I'll say this too. We didn't talk about it during the movie here, but Pedro Serrano, also known as the best president of all time, David Palmer.
Absolutely.
Long time ago, Ty and Badway and I. Ty was a great host of the Bauer Hour podcast. I think it's still out there, so you go check it out if you liked 24. Go check that out.
Yep.
But Ty, thank you so much for coming on, teaching us all everything you know about podcasting, sharing that knowledge.
Tell us what to do.
Thank you for the kind words. Means a lot. If you guys haven't heard of Ty's podcast, go check it out, solidverbal.com. I'll put links in the show notes to Ty's Twitter and for his podcast. Absolutely check it out, especially if you're a college football fan. It's the best college football podcast out there.
Yeah. To get Ty on an August night when the college football never stops.
It's a big deal.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Anything for you guys. Anything for you guys. I was thrilled to get the invite.
Thank you. So if you guys are enjoying the show or you're new to the show, check our website out, thelastrowpodcast.com. Check us out on all the social channels at The Last Row Pod. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Hit the subscribe button and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. We are in the middle of the summer of sequels. Sorry for the 1-week delay. We had a power outage in the Northeast here. We will be back on August 24th with Speed 2 Cruise Control. Never seen it, so that'll be an interesting one.
This is going to be an experience.
We're heading into uncharted waters here, literally.
It's going to be a disaster. I don't know. I almost regret it immediately.
Oh man! So on that note, we'll see you guys on August 24th.
All right, see you.